Hello again. Yeah, welcome once more to Kerbal Space Program. Everybody's favourite little green space, whatever they are. The career mode playthrough we're currently going through, Brave New World. Last episode we put boots on Minmus for the first time, with a mission that, let's be fair, didn't go perfectly. So what we're going to do is a few little changes. So we've got this one here that says rendezvous and dock 2 vessels. That's potentially quite useful. We have 2 satellite contracts, which are also potentially quite useful. So what we're going to do, we're going to rebuild the X2 lander with a different boost stage so it can actually do the job properly. We're going to give it a docking port. We're going to stick it in orbit around Minmus. And then I'm going to look and see what I can do with these 2 satellite missions, because I think we're going to be building a small space station. But, first off, modifications. So we have this one here, which we had last time. Now, let's be honest, that bit didn't work, so I'm going to get rid of it. What I'm also going to do is make a few tweaks to this bit. Yeah, now most of this, it actually worked. I mean, it did the job. But that's coming off. We're going to go into coupling. And it's going to get a clampetron shoved on the top. What I also want now is a proper reaction control rig. Which is going to see some thrusters there. And some thrusters. Yeah, can't really put them on the other bits. We'll put them there. We'll see how that looks as we go around. It's swapped to being 3, which I don't want. I want that to be 4. It has to be 4. So I'm going to put that there. Yeah, and then I'm going to... I'll shift the lights. Just the lights. Yeah, just shift the lights. And we'll go with 4 lights, and I can put them like that. It's not quite 4 candles, but it'll do. So that's that bit. The next bit is... where it is, it's here. Ah, yes. The big fairing. Now this is being tasked with assisting in getting the thing into space in the first place. So we had a bit of drag going up last time. That should release that problem. We are now going to rebuild the actual thing under it in a slightly more capable way. So we've got that as a stage. The idea there, if I set this to be in vacuum, 800 odd, the idea of that is that will send you to Minmus or to the Mun. Now, as we all know from last time I said that, didn't quite work. So, yeah. So what we're also going to have is a proper second stage, which is going to have a skipper on it. So that is now the this will get you to orbit bit. And we're going to have to go up a little bit further because this is going to get a tad taller, because we're going to put a proper first stage under it. Let's have a look at this. One of those again. We're now going to come into here. I've got the big fuel tank now, which is that one. And we also now have the mainsail, which is a honking great engine. I like the mainsail. So, that's a chunk of performance. We are still in vacuum. I want to put it back to sea level. So, we're going to get about 1,000 odd out of that. Go back to vacuum level, we'll get about another 1,000 odd out of that. In and of itself, it's still not quite enough. Thruster weight is okay, but not brilliant. So what I'm actually going to do is give this thing a couple of boosters. We've used this we've used this technique before. I'm, however, only going to go with 2 because I don't think I need them more than that. Fuel tanks. We are going to go with this style, however. One of them there like that. But I want them to... I want to burn for a little bit longer. Possibly not like that. Possibly that. And... Reliance, because that mainsail can most definitely provide all of the required thrust. So, show that. Plenty of performance off the pad. 1,400. That should be enough performance to get this thing into space. So there are a few little tweaks that need doing. Like that. And fins shouldn't need them. I'm going to regret saying that, but it shouldn't need them. So what we're then going to do is attach the boosters. Come a little bit further up. Like so, and shove another couple of these up there. And it probably won't hurt to do this either. Struts do add a little bit of drag, I think. I can't quite remember, but there we go. So, we can then go in and say, have a couple of clamps on that. So first stage, all the engines will fire, drop the boosters. Second stage will fire, third stage will fire. Fairing probably will be jettisoned manually a little bit earlier on. Right. That's the X3. So, let us head back to Minmus. Now I'm going to take those 2 out. I'm going to put those 2 in. And this one's job is science near Minmus. We may land. We don't have a flag on mission, but we may land. This basically, the idea is, I want to get this into orbit. Oh, I'm going to need a bit more monoprop fuel before we go anywhere else. Fuel tanks. These. And what I'm going to do is go with a triplet of those above the landing gear. Yeah, that'll work. In theory, you want them on the upper bit. So actually, yeah, I think I'm actually going to go for a quartet of them. No, I'm not. I'm going to go for 2. I don't want them in the way. Ooh, actually, I can put them there, so they'll sit underneath where they're out of the way. Yeah, that'll do. Right. Save. Let's fly. I hope. So there we are. As usual, daytime, because I want to see what I'm doing. That and the fact it looks better. We shall have that. And we shall go full throttle. And we shall lift off. Stability on. Off we go. See, slightly better performance off the pad. Interesting on the fuel usage slightly. This tends to suggest the boosters in the first stage are going to burn out at the same time. Isn't strictly speaking ideal, but never mind. In fact, if anything, the centre stage is going to burn out first. Yeah, we'll see. I can see a performance adjustment coming on for the second flight of this thing, which is doing quite well so far. Yeah, I could possibly actually detune that centre engine slightly, but anyway, see you in orbit. Okay, here we are in orbit. Now, once again, the boost stage has just about got us into orbit, but with not a lot left. So that booster needs redesigning again. However, if this is going to be a Minmus orbit mission rather than a Minmus lander, which I think is what we're going to end up doing, set that as the target, then all of a sudden it becomes worthwhile. So what I'm actually going to do this time is tweak the orbit inclination slightly. Is it that one? Not that one. It's there, like that. And what we're going to do then is that. And this will put us into the matching inclination. Although I will have to do the burn from here. Because if I don't, I won't be able to do the staging when I need to. So we need to get to T minus 8 seconds according to that. D. And that should now have us. Yeah, they are virtually in the same plane. Minor thing, but what it does is it means we don't have to jiggery-pokery quite so much. And that is a technical term. Technical spacefaring term, that. Jiggery-pokery. Yeah, that's going to take us near Mun, which I don't particularly want to do. So, continue past Mun out to the lovely little minty moon of Minmus is there. And if we go that way, you see we're now pointing at Minmus. What I've got to do now is rotate this orbit around until we actually get the required encounter. So, Minmus Periapis 500. Let's have a look. See if I can do that. Don't want to be retrograde, whatever happens. That'll do. Right. So that is going to be pretty much that. And then we'll be warping there in a moment. However, I'll be back with you in a second. And back. Right. So this is going to use an awful lot of the fuel we've got, but whatever. The next the next iteration of this rocket will be slightly more capable. So need to rotate that there. A little more like that. Back a touch. Across to this. 48 seconds, so T minus 26. And that we need to hit the power. So weirdly, I made a larger, more advanced lander, and if anything, it's less capable than the one I had previously. Yes, go figure. This is basically because the boost stage isn't big enough, isn't powerful enough. Essentially, the third stage of the rocket should be the bit doing this. So I need to make that that first stage a little bit more hefty. Not too hard to do. Keep that pointing at the target. over here and click all of that off, or try to. Right, what I want to do is that Minmus periapsis is what I'm after. There we are, done. Ta-da! Right. There's Mun again. See what I mean about Mun photobombing things? Get back into sunlight. Just because I can grab a picture if I do it in sunlight. So, yes. Anyway. Right. Minmus. As what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this thing into a stable low Minmus orbit. We are then going to come back. Oh, I put the antenna on. Where is the antenna? Is there? Extend that. Ding. Not strictly speaking needed because this is a crewed vehicle. We are going to send a space station out here, which will be uncrewed. So that'll be a sort of a probe ship, and so I'm going to come in here, do that, and yeah, I will stick a maneuver on to do it because I want to see how much it's going to take to get into a fairly stable orbit. There we are. Now the question is how... See, that's pretty elliptical now. Because I did that initial maneuver, this is going to be pretty elliptical, so that'll work. Warp to that. Set the alignment correctly. We're going to bring a space station out here and dock to it. I'm not actually going to combine it with the satellite missions because they both seem to be retrograde, which... Well, one definitely is. Yeah, the green one. I might try OMB demolitions and get the space station to do that contract and then move it inwards. Might do that, which I don't think will hurt. But meantime, we're going to go for about... Well, orbit doesn't have to be completely circular. Be nice if it's reasonably so. Yeah, that'll do. Right. So that's this crew in space around Minmus. They're not low around Minmus, but they're in a fairly stable orbit. The space station's going to be quite a bit lower. The reason it's going to be lower is I definitely want it to be in space near Minmus. So let's go over to this, tidy up. Have we got anything else interesting? Side data from surface of Minmus and flag on Minmus, which pays better. Flag on pays better, and we'll be doing it back anyway. A few others that are starting to look interesting. Yeah, finished construction of a rover. Yeah, not interested in that. Right, space station. So now this is a tad different because what we need is utility, no cargo. Can't put that in as the first unit. Okay. Just see, I need something I can use as the root of a spaceship. Can I use that? Can't use that. I know what I want, because I want a probe core inside a module. Can't use that one. Can I use that one? No. That one? No. Yeah. Interesting on the bits of the service module there. What do you do? Cargo part place. Fair enough. Right. Command and control. Can't start with one of those. Can't even start with that, which seems a little bit odd. Ah! Yes. Right. So yes, I can start with the part I actually wanted to, which is down here. Thought you could. So we're going to go with that. Don't want that piece. I want the cargo module. I actually want the payload. I actually want that one. So open that, because what we're going to do is stick a probe core in it. By putting the probe core inside the thing, firstly it gets it out of the way, but it also means we don't have to worry about using it as like a piece of structure. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go give it a battery. I'm then going to give it 3 more batteries. Right. That's our space station. So this is going to be called Minmus Gateway. Now on its own, that's not that useful. So we need the OMB mission. So antenna, whatever. I don't know which of these is which. However, I'm going to put a Science Junior on it anyway. Which means we have definitely got what we need. So that is that. We are then going to go into structure. One of those. And that's sort of a useful thing to have. We are then going to go into command and control. We're going to have one of those, which gives the thing a reaction wheel. We are then going into structural again. We're going to have not one of those, we're going to have one of those because it'll help with launching the thing. Now we're going to come into science and add that, which is effectively the important bit of what we're going to do here. That needs some electrical panels, and once in orbit they will not be retracting, so we can do it like that and have 4. That'll work. And that is in effect a space station. This bit here lets it hold its attitude. There's a probe control in it. It's got power. It then needs some antennas, because if it doesn't get some antennas we're not going to be able to do a lot with it. So it's going to get 4 antennas, which are going to go that way, like that, further down. And then what we need to be able to do is dock to it. So, yeah, because obviously we have to do a docking mission. So I'm going to stick a clampertron on the top of that spike bit there. And then also going to stick 4 more on there. Which are going to go there, like that. And the purpose of that is we can dock other bits to it, obviously. And because there's the question there is, do you put another docking port on the back? Now, see, at the moment this thing doesn't have any engines. It doesn't really need them for its mission. However, it wouldn't hurt to have a few. So it's going to get some engines, which aren't going to do a great deal. In fact, they'll do absolutely nothing at the moment because they haven't got any fuel. Where's the smallest one of these? One of those? Put one of those on board, and then a quartet of those and another docking adapter. Which I just want one of. There we go. So, it has some science. It's going to get the ability to do all the other science experiments as well, because frankly, why not? One of those. And we'll stick the barometer there and this bit here. Now, when this thing gets into orbit, what we're going to do is transfer the scientist into here with various bits of science. And then we're going to leave him. Not particularly nice, but that's what we're going to do. Right, this now comes up here. So how heavy is this thing? 9 tons, 9.5 tons. See, it's not actually particularly heavy. Its ability to manoeuvre itself is significant, but not mind-blowing. I'm also going to give it some monopropellant fuel tanks. Now, what I'm not doing is giving it any monopropellant engines. And the reason I'm not doing that is because it doesn't need them. That fuel is not for this thing. That is so that things that dock to it can grab a little bit. Same with this tank. Whatever's left in here is to service other things. Eventually it might get a fuel module, but there we go. So, what do we now need? We now need a way of getting this thing where it's going. And because this is basically a big satellite, we have another distinct advantage. It doesn't have to come back. So, a stack separator there, which I'm going to turn right down. That needs that one bigger. Yeah, it's a bit bigger, but I don't really want that. What we're now going to do is go into I need a proper fuel tank. So we're going to do a transfer stage, which is going to be one of these. Like that. Although it's going to come down a bit because I'm going to stick a fairing in. Because again, while this thing is vaguely the right shape, it is a little bit... That'll do. Yeah. A weird sort of lozenge shape thing. We'll do that. This is going to be probably its second stage and its injection stage, but that'll do for this because this isn't particularly heavy. One of those. And fuel tanks, I want the big one, big Rocco Max. And then I'm going to try it. I'll see what the skipper does in terms of performance. 0.9, so that's not even going to get it off the ground. Yeah, I've never seen that one before. What does that do? Even less. That's obviously a space engine. Kodiak is tiny. So, whack one of them under it. That'll go up. Sea level performance. And then vacuum performance. That should do. Fairly basic, but it should do. I'm just going to lift this up slightly. There we go. And a couple of those for the base. Ding, ding, then check up here when that fires. I want to activate those engines as well. There we go, Minmus Gateway. There shouldn't be any crew on board. There isn't, which is good. Launch. Right. So again, sunrise, so we can see what we're doing. I see we're getting more science from the thing deployed on Minmus. So stability on, check the orbit, full throttle. Possibly not, well, I'll launch on full throttle. Right, Minmus, here we come. And basically the less time we spend in the lower atmosphere the better, but equally I don't want to accelerate too quickly. Accelerate too fast and there's going to be problems. Basically we'll just be going too quick in the lower atmosphere and we will get too much drag, even with that honking great nose cone attached. As you can see, we're getting the atmospheric effect on the nose cone, but not on anything else. That should be minimising drag quite nicely. Now we're a bit higher, I'll throttle up again. So here we are pulling well over 3G as we go up. This first stage is almost throwing us into space, not quite. Nope, this first stage just about threw us into space. So hopefully this second stage now can just get us into orbit. In fact, there is remarkably little reason why it couldn't. In fact, I may even, at this point, cut the engines. Reason being, I want to get into space before I do the circularization burn. That'll do. Jettison that because we don't want the weight of it. That, add maneuver all the way out there like so. That'll do. And yeah, it's saying the manoeuvre hold is about there. The problem with this manoeuvre is we're we should be alright. We're burning a bit late, but we'll see. While we're at it, I'm going to extend an antenna. And a solar panel. If it's going to extend a lot, why not? If you're building a craft which you are going to fly often, it's worth setting the action groups up. For something like this where it's a one-off, it's probably not worth it. It occurred to me I should probably put lights on this thing, which I didn't. Yeah, never mind. It's also a bit wobbly. The reason it's wobbly is that joint in the middle. Once we get rid of that, it won't be wobbly. And there we are in orbit. Again, I'm going to do that little plane change thing while we are here. So we go to the ascending node, add maneuver, and do that. Yeah, right, delete that. Add maneuver, right. I'll just dealing with slight frustrations of the interface there, trying to get the there we go. So 300 odd it reckons to do that, which shouldn't be a problem. We've now doing this sort of mission a little bit earlier would have been problematic. However, because we've now got plenty of satellites in orbit, it's much less so than it was. Warp round to here, we'll do this manoeuvre. Okay. Oh yeah, that's where we're going to be, not where we are now. So yeah, my fault. Now I just want to get the craft lined up enough that I can track that as we do it. And T-10 will be doing this, roughly. Skip forward a little bit, right. And again, this is about minimising what we're doing, and it means we should end up in a fairly equatorial orbit of Minmus, which is what I want. Because that's where the thing we're... Well, this isn't going to rendezvous with the lander. The lander is going to rendezvous with this. Is the idea. So, there we go. So where's Minmus got to? The Minty Moon, where are you? Sorry about that. Managed to click off the screen, which means my... oh, there we are. My system says, nope, not looking. Right, I reckon about there. Could be wrong, but that's about where I reckon. Yeah, not quite. So, oh, naught. Right. So again, managed to have the mouse pointer over the wrong thing, and then it decided that meant obviously I wanted to edit something when I didn't. There we go, and Minmus periapsis is what it is, and I want to go a little bit lower with that. Because like I say, the idea here is this station is in low Minmus orbit. And it's much, much more efficient to do this manoeuvring now. As you see, I'm using very, very little fuel doing this. 60 odd, yeah, that'll do, right. That should basically be a pro-grade burn by the time we get there. This again I'm going to have to do from the other screen a little bit. Reason being, I need to see what I'm doing. I also need to be able to hit the staging control. So get rid of that and do that. So I'm just grabbing a couple of pictures of this while I'm doing it, because why not? Burn time 5 minutes. Okay, so to make a start on that now. And the reason it's 5 minutes is because of how low the thrust is on the second stage. So the second stage on the station itself. Which has got bags of performance, so let's have a little look and watch this. But not much actual thrust. It's got a lot of power, but sort of in a small package. These ant engines really aren't very powerful, but this thing's never actually going to move again, so they almost don't matter. What's that? So yes, that is going up a little, but yes, a little. Pointed at the manoeuvre, and we shouldn't be rocking quite as much as we were. As you can see, this is not going to be a quick burn. It'll get there, but yeah. So I'm going to fast forward this again. I will see you on the other side. Now, just a quick interesting point here. You could sort of do an assist with Mun carefully, but notice the difference in performance required to get to Mun and then out to Minmus is about 100 meters per second. Minmus is also easier to get into orbit of. This is why basically anything that can get to Mun and do Mun orbit can do Minmus and Minmus orbit as well. It's only really Mun flybys that are a little bit cheaper. And obviously if you're trying to do a landing mission, it takes a lot more power to land and take off from Mun than it does Minmus, which is basically why anything that can land and return from Mun can do the same from Minmus. Now the other way around isn't necessarily true, of course, but you know, it's, that is what it is. And when you look at the starter system here, you start with Kerbal in orbit, then Mun orbit, then Minmus orbit. So Mun is in a perfect equatorial plane, so it's the easy one to get to. Minmus, slightly more difficult, but not particularly, with a slight incline. So you sort of forced to learn how to do these manoeuvres early on. Right, now I'm actually I am going to burn a little bit more than that. I'm going to leave the Minmus orbit a little bit higher than I was thinking of, because obviously I've got these this satellite thing I'm trying to do, which I think is about 100 and something, so I'm going to head for about 200. That'll do. There we go. So we're now going to go out here. Here we are, so drifting out nicely. Look, Kerbal and Mun, as you do, obviously. And I'm going to go a little bit ahead of the periapsis, because obviously this thing's going to take a while. You'll notice when we unlock and start using the nuclear engines to go places, they're incredibly efficient, but like this, they're quite low thrust. You end up with quite long injection burns. Yes, now you see I'm actually slightly on the high side for the orbit. So what I'll do is I'll do a burn there, which will bring me into orbit. But I shall leave the upper part of the orbit about where it needs to be for that. 3 odd, yeah, I just basically got the orientation slightly wrong there. We've got plenty of fuel to do this. I can then lift this up and go, and then I'll lower it back down to the low orbit, probably about 50, I think it is. And then we can we can bring the switch to the lander, get that to doctor this thing, get the scientist on board, do all of the science. The lander is as capable of doing the science as the satellite is, so I'll probably do most of the science on the station itself. So yeah, 3 minutes 13 seconds, so 1 minute 40 about is where we need to start the burn here. So you see, this is a lot longer burn than we would normally use. So again, I will catch you when we have... Well, I'll catch you when I've got the upper part of the orbit sorted, and we're starting to look at the this satellite, which obviously, as you can see, is going to require a little bit of adjustment. But I'll get the orbit done first. Okay, overshot slightly there. Pressing the wrong button to turn the engines off. I'm going to do that. Right, what I now have to do is the plane change maneuver, which is most easily done at this sort of point here, which is one of these two. I can't remember which it's going to be. That'll do. So this isn't a particularly powerful manoeuvre, but this is where these engines will really come into their own, because they can do it quite nicely. We'll get this done. I'll get the other part of the... Yes, I've just completely screwed that up. So before I do this, I need to open that out again. Let's just delete that. Right. What I'm actually going to do is go there and raise the other part of the orbit first. It'll make the plane change maneuver a bit easier. See, it's telling me what the nodes are now, which is the information I need. I've got more science being beamed back. You see, this is that little thing we did on the surface. It's rather useful. And that can go to about there. We now have to go descending. Kill that because it doesn't want to rotate properly. Right, so as we go between these two nodes, is where I want to do this. So there, and it's descending node, which is... Oh, well, I want the ascending node, which takes me to there. And... yeah, it looks near enough. We'll do that. Just keep that showing. Yes, this is the... Yeah, we'll get... Once this manoeuvre's done, I should be able to sort this orbit out fairly easily. We'll grab that contract, and then we will lower the orbit again. So... 3, 2, 1. There we go, that'll do. That's the plane adjusted nicely. The next bit is to go here. And then it's one of these two here just to get the orbit. Basically get the orbits lined up. I want to get the periapsis and the apoapsis sort of aligned, or at least near as damn it. What we're then going to do is drop the apoapsis down to where it needs to be. Should be fairly easy to do. And then that should grab us the contract. This is something that's always well worth trying to do if you can, is if you're sending something somewhere anyway, what other contracts can I get at the same time? Bring that round to there. And once I've got the other contracts, it's basically you're essentially looking at free money. I want to do something anyway. Can I get somebody to pay me to do it? So in this case here, we needed to get a satellite in orbit up here. I want this science station in orbit around Minmus because you can get a quick hit. If we grab all this science and take it back, we get it now. If I put it in this space lab, process it and send it back, we get the return many fold over. So there we are. So now we just hold stability. And that's fine. Once that contract will kick in. There we are. So we've got that one. So delete all those messages. Don't know why it says don't show this again, because it always shows it again. Right. So that is now the target. We are virtually at one of the nodes, which is good. So ascending node 5.5, I'm going to go in and add the maneuver, which I think that's the ascending one. That'll do. And again, this is about just matching us with the target craft, because this will make docking a bit easier. Pure equatorial would probably be easier, but to be honest, every time I'll send something out here to come and collect this is assuming I do send anybody out here to come and collect this poor scientist who I'm not entirely sure realised what he was signing up to. But never mind. Right. So, warp to that. This is a very small burn. Which will get... Basically, it'll turn this blue line into this dotted orange line, which is then on the same plane as that yellow line, which is the whole idea. Down here like this. Ready to burn this full throttle for a few seconds. Like that. There we are, done. Right, what I'm now going to do is lower the orbit of this thing down to about 50. Maybe 40. I can't remember where the threshold for low over Minmus is. I think it's below. It's probably below 70 or something. So if I go down to about 60 with this, and then we'll find out. So up there. So I'm going to lower this, and then we'll switch to the other craft and drop it down as well. And here I do want this orbit to be largely circular. The reason for it being largely circular is it's a lot easier to dock to something that's on a circular orbit. But as you see, we've got bags of fuel left in this thing, which is good, because it means there's always something in Minmus orbit with a little bit of a reserve. That'll do, 59, that's about as circular as it's going to get. So, what we now do... See, this is still space high over Minmus. So that's obviously not right. So if I drop that to 40, that'll do. And we'll try it at 40. Yeah, it does actually matter. Basically, we've done all the high orbit science, so we're not going to gain anything by doing that again. $38.40, that's near enough. Material study, Still high over Minmus, okay. Let's try 30. I don't mind what it has to be. I just, yeah. I mean, lower is a little bit more awkward because you end up orbiting so fast that when you start lining up in daylight, you end up finding you're actually docking in darkness and so on and so forth. So just let this thing reset itself around. Try this. High over Minmus still. Okay, reset. This is getting interesting. Try below 25. I find it hard to imagine it's going to be much much lower than 25. I suppose it could be 20. You eventually get to the point where it's like I'm not really in orbit. I'm sort of landed and really running quite quickly. Although this does have the advantage that this is quite an easy position to get to from the surface. There we go. We can see what we're doing now. There we are. Space near. So. Yeah, I thought we'd... I didn't realise we'd done all the science near. We appear to have. Okay. This may well mean we need to change this mission slightly into a land and then lift off whatever mission. Okay, so... where are we? That one. Switch to. So here we are. Yes, my own mistake there. I thought we'd done a bit more of this. So this isn't really capable of landing and... probably is capable of landing and lifting off. If I enable cross-feed on that. So these engines can now draw from this fuel tank. Yeah, so... Okay, what we now need to do is land, take off, and then rendezvous with that thing for a docking. Okay. Let's try. What could possibly go wrong? I really ought to know better, but there we go. So this one I'm going to go around, drop us into a nice low orbit, and then we'll work out where we're going to land. I can basically land anywhere I haven't landed already, and we'll get silly amounts of science again. That's now saying that lower stage's tanks are drained. We only really need the lower stage engines and tanks for landing and what have you, so Where should we land? The seas are the best places to land. However, they're all, by the look of that, a bit busy. So what we're actually going to do is land more or less where we are. Right, landing gear down. I will catch you on the surface of Minmus. Again. Okay, here we are. Touchdown. So, we shall do the same thing we usually do. So, crew report. Yep, we'll keep that. I'm going to, actually, before I do anything else, I'm going to disable crossfeed. Let's do enable crossfeed, sorry. Not that, I want the fuel tanks. So, out. Yep, there's no fuel in the bottom tanks, that's fine. So now I can go in disable crossfeed. Basically, this means the lower stage isn't going to do anything anymore. It's now effectively inert. Open this. So where are we? We are Midlands, which is, yeah, and it's basically this is the bulk of Minmus is the Midlands. So yeah, log temperature. Right, there we are. Right. Mr. Scientist, guess where you're going? You're going outside, you're going to go in there, grab that, you're going to do as an EVA report. Because we like EVA reports. EVA reports are good. Going to come all the way down here and then we splat. Okay, yeah, whatever. So come over here. Surface sample, which is always a good one to have. We're going to come a little bit further away. Plant flag, because that completes the mission that we're being paid for to come out here. So, Midlands there. Right. So again, we have all the capability of dropping one of these little surface stations off. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drop this thing off, gather the rest of the science, and then I'll be back with you in a mo. Okay, there we are. Everybody nicely back on board. I'm going to make damn sure these lower stage engines don't fire ever again by turning them off. And we are going to get ready to go back into orbit. Now, believe head that way. Okay, so throttle up slightly. There we go. And what I need to do is just make sure, yep, a little plane here, could do with adjusting slightly. Let's go for that, like so. I want to get that up to about 20 odd, because funnily enough, we're going for the docking station, which we should have the fuel. I mean, I could basically I can refuel this thing and rob a little bit of fuel when we get to the space station, so I'm quite happy with that. And what I'm going to do is get this up to, yeah, around about there. I will then circularize it. Something like that. Take me to that maneuver. This will not take very long. So T-4 will fire the engines, yada 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 yada, and that's, yeah, not quite in the plane I wanted for the that as a target, but yeah, it'll do for now. We have the capability to plane change and all that sort of stuff to get to it. There we are, safely in orbit. In fact, if anything, a little bit too high, but that's fine. We're now going to come to that node. There we are. Yeah, right. Now, we are going to be catching that at this point, which I'm fine with. See the previous comments I've made about you always seem to end up docking in the dark. We now have a rendezvous. We have completed that, allegedly. So here we are. Somewhere there's our lovely, lovely little target craft. Actually very, very close as well. So we are going to go... Control from here. The reason for accelerating there is just to get the thing so that I can get Jeb to handle the braking burn for me. Now, see, the thing itself is actually quite a large size. We're going to have to pick what docking port we're going to go for. To be honest, it doesn't really matter. We're going to go to that Clampatron on the top. Now, I'm slightly hindered here by the fact it's dark. I could basically stay with the thing until we get round onto the light side, or I could just do it in the dark, basically an instrument docking, which is I think what we're going to do. So I need to just rotate slightly like that. And as before, we're going to get fairly close. Just want to... I want to be pointing... like this. As with last time, I want to position myself basically ahead of the thing's docking port and go in from there. So really, we're going to aim to stop when the space station goes past us. Or is nearly going past us. begin. I just want to go a little bit. I want to get closer, but also a little bit past because I'm trying to centre the thing for the docking ports. You don't actually need RCS to dock. It's much better if you do, but you don't need it. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go into there and drop that thrust down. So that's pointing at it, and now I want to do that way. Basically because we need to now do the same thing we did before, but in the other axis. So we need to bring down here, and then we should be not quite directly at the thing, but getting there. I realise you can't really see what I'm doing here. Delete all of that. Didn't bring the pop-up up that time. You basically tell the thing, I don't want to ever see that message ever again, and you will. You'll be telling it, I don't want to see that ever again for quite a while. So here we are coming up on the currently lifeless space station. Right, so what I need to do is get the alignment about right. Reaction engines on, and now hopefully this should be about it. It's not perfect. Basically the yellow circle and the pink circle need to completely overlap, and it's quite hard to do. There we are. That should, with a bit of luck, be good enough. So I bring it this way. I'm ready on the go backwards key if necessary. So we're lined up more or less that way, we're lined up more or less that way. This should take us in. I hope. Should be near enough. We'll see, we'll either dock or we'll bounce off, one or the other. Hey, we've done it. So there we are with that. So what I'm now going to do is warp to sunrise so we can see what we're doing. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. And there we are in Minmus orbit, and I'm actually going to leave it there for this one. Next time we will come back and we will set the science system up. We will go home and we will then see what we can do from that. But in the meantime, thank you very much for watching. As usual, likes, comments, subscribes, whatever, shares, all the usual YouTube good goods. And I will catch you in the next one. Thank you very much, and goodbye.